Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maulana Tariq Jameel has been criticized by the secular establishment in Pakistan over his comments relating to the coronavirus. The people have criticized him that he has made some comments against women and he has made comments about sins of the people uh, being responsible for bringing about the coronavirus. It is important to know for the people in Pakistan and elsewhere that Mulana Tariq Jameel did not make this up himself. This is something which the Quran talks about repeatedly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said it so many times in the Quran that sins are responsible for the destruction. People are punished by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of their sins. So Tariq Jameel did not make this up himself. And people are giving the impression, the secular establishment in Pakistan is giving the impression that somehow Tariq Jameel came up with this new idea that people are being punished for their sins. The problem is that the secular media is not aware of what the Quran is saying, and unfortunately, they realize that the general public also doesn't understand that this is not something that Tariq Jameel or any other religious person made it up. That what they need to do is read the Quran and see how many times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that people are punished for their sins. And it's important for the public to understand that the solution to the coronavirus is not in social distancing and keeping your hands clean and the, all the other measures that have been suggested by the government and by the doctors and by science. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it very clear that his unseen system is disturbed. And Mullah Tariq Jameel tried to bring that up. And he gave example also of the people of Lut al-Islam, that they were punished for their immorality. So instead of saying that Tariq Jameel is just saying what the Quran is saying, they are trying to give the impression that Tariq Jameel has come up with a new theory. So this is a big tragedy in a Muslim country. One can understand that in non-Muslim countries, their thinking is completely different. They don't consider sins to be responsible for the destruction of the societies, of the nations, of the individuals. Their thinking or their indoctrination is completely different, and we have to be very careful that the Muslim thinking or the Quranic thinking is completely opposite to that. If you read the Quran, you get this impression that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not just sit there and let people do what they like. He gives them time. There is no question about that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not act like the police that when a person commits a sin, he gets punishment immediately. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful, He's kind, He's gracious, and He keeps waiting. And the Quran talks about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving people small punishments to save them from big punishment. So all these are these calamities, these pandemics, epidemics, plagues, whatever you want to call them, they are a result of Allah's decision to it is a slap on the wrist, so to speak, to make people wake up. And unfortunately, the ignorant secular media and all the so-called intellectuals, secular intellectuals of Pakistan, are giving the impression that sins have nothing to do with all these calamities. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us this system. His system is very clear that if people continue and become stubborn and they don't listen to what he's saying, then results will happen, consequences will come. And consequences will come first in this life, and the real consequences will come in the next life. The unbeliever does not even believe that there is a life after death. He thinks that when a person dies, the matter is over. Ashes, as I said, dust to dust, ashes to ashes. But Allah doesn't say that. Allah has not said anywhere that when a person dies, that's the end of the person. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this life because He's testing, He's sifting people from the good, He's sifting people from the bad to the good. He's seeing who is going to believe and who's not going to believe. This is what the Quran is saying. This is what Allah is saying. So these people want us to believe that astaghfirullah, Allah is wrong and the secular intellectuals are right. So they have to get their act together. They have to understand that this is a very serious matter. That they try to attack Tariq Jameel and other religious scholars thinking that they have won the battle. They are misleading the people. They're not telling them the truth. They're not telling them that this is not Tariq Jameel. This is what Allah is saying. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very serious. No one follows the law more strictly than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. If they go on sinning, then the problems will go on coming. And it doesn't matter whether the sins are being done by the Muslims or they are being done by the non-Muslims. The rule is the same. You see, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't make distinction, and with violations of His laws, then results will happen. So the first thing is to diagnose the problem in the way the Quran talks about. So if they diagnose the problem in a way different from the Quran, the problem is not going to go away. The first thing the doctor does, he diagnoses the problem and then he gives the medicine. The problem with the secular intellectuals is they are not even diagnosing the problem. They don't even think that this has anything to do. This is how the unbelievers think. They don't think sins have any impact on the lives of the people, even though they see it all the time. They see how lives of individuals, the lives of nations are destroyed, but they don't think because their mindset is very different. For the Muslims, this kind of thinking or this kind of indoctrination is going against the Quran, and it's very important. And this is especially true of the English media in Pakistan. Newspapers like Dawn, the newspapers that people read in English, they are promoting a different thinking. They bring people to write articles, and they do not let the other view come into the media, into the newspaper. If somebody writes anything critical, they don't even publish it. So unfortunately, the so-called intellectuals of Pakistan, the so-called educated people of Pakistan, don't even know what the Quran is saying. So they keep bashing the Maulvis, they keep bashing the religious scholars and say as if these people are uneducated. In other words, what they're saying is that the Quran is not for the educated people. They've spent their whole lives studying philosophers and poets, and they spend all their lives studying literature that doesn't say any of this. They have not studied literature that says that sins are responsible for the destruction of the people. And they mislead a lot of young people in Pakistan who have no idea what the Quran is saying. They don't have any idea what sins do to the society. So they go on thinking that these newspapers or these so-called intellectuals must be right. And unfortunately, a lot of people in Pakistan don't read these newspapers. They don't know what they are saying. And the people who rule the country, people who are in top places, they read newspapers like Dawn and they think this must be right. So this is a big fitna. This is a big trial for the people. The common person, of course, doesn't even know what kind of indoctrination is being done in the name of education. They just assume that these people are doing the right thing, and this is a part of the problem of the educational system in Pakistan. The people are given a completely different way of thinking. And they grow up thinking that the society will prosper if they do what the unbelievers are doing. And they keep on doing that, and they keep on getting punished every time. You can see the history of Pakistan in 72 years. Every government has been doing the same thing because all these people who rule, who are in top places, have the same wrong thinking. And if Imran Khan doesn't change that, he's going to go into the same condition. He's going to go out in the same way, in the way in which the previous governments went. He has to be very careful that he doesn't fall into this trap, you see. And unfortunately, the people he has appointed in top places have the same wrong thinking. How many of these people have this thinking of the Quran? How many people think that sins will bring destruction? What is the difference between Imran Khan and Narendra Modi, for example, or leaders of the secular countries? If he's going to think the same way as they are and trying to get economic development, trying to get prosperity, and this, and he thinks it's going to come by following the Western model or the British model or the American model or the Swedish model or whatever model or the Chinese model for that matter, then there's no difference between him. He's been in office for almost 2 years. Does anybody see any change? Do people see anything different from what happened during the time of Nawaz Sharif and what happened during the time of Zardari and Musharraf and the others? Do they see anything different? It's just getting worse and worse and worse. And it will keep on getting worse. It's not going to get any better. So the problem is their thinking. They're not even thinking that Allah has anything to do with the conditions. And the Quran keeps reminding people that Allah says, I will not change your condition until you change. And what is that change? Change doesn't mean what Imran Khan is thinking about. Change means you've got to change your thinking. The thinking is that if you go on committing sins, that you'll keep on getting punished. This is the thinking that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about. That if you keep on sinning, you keep on disobeying, you will not get good results. And this fitna, this thing that in the media, in the academia, and the educated class of Pakistan, the examples they give is look at the West. They made a lot of progress and they commit a lot of sins, and you see they can still make progress and they can still. So sins have nothing to do with progress. But you see, Allah does give people time. He doesn't destroy a nation in 5-10 years. He gives them a long time. But we see now this virus is causing problems in the most developed, in the most prosperous, in the most so-called successful countries. And it's Allah's way of saying that you, with all your progress, with all your success, you are completely helpless in front of this little virus. So this is the time for them to understand that this is not by chance. This is not just something that happens every 100 years or once in a while. This is happening by design of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Tariq Jameel didn't just say this by himself. This is not his view, this is not his opinion. This is what Allah is saying. And the people in Pakistan, if they want to get the help of Allah, they have to change their ways. This is what Imran Khan should be telling people. Instead of Tariq Jameel saying that, Imran Khan should be saying all this. And he should be saying it every day. In fact, Tariq Jameel said something to the point. He said, I will say it on behalf of Imran Khan because I think he knows that Imran Khan is not going to say this. Because Imran Khan might be afraid that if he says this, people might think he's uneducated. But Imran Khan would not be saying this. He would be saying what Allah is saying. You see, these people in the media, they are, or in the secular establishment, they don't have the courage to say that what is in the Quran is wrong. They say, oh, the Maulvis have made it up, and they are saying this. And I'm surprised in a Muslim country like Pakistan, which is almost 100% Muslim, this kind of ignorant thinking is being promoted by newspapers like Dawn. and the other secular media. And this needs to be corrected. And the person to correct it is Imran Khan. He should come out in the open. He should make a speech every day that, look, people, this is what the Quran is saying. And this is some good opportunity for Imran Khan to actually see what the Quran is saying. He said, this is what the Quran is saying. If you want to improve your conditions, if you want to get a good life, you have to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you keep on doing that, and not just in 5 times prayer, if you just pray 5 times a day and then you rest of the day you keep disobeying Allah, then you are not going to get the results. You have to do what Allah is saying, and then you see the results. So Imran Khan has wasted 2 years in office, and if he doesn't correct himself, he's going to waste the remaining time. He needs to come out in the public and he has to tell people, here is the real problem. Don't you see? Allah is sending a message. He's sending a message to the whole world that with all your advancement, with all your technology, you cannot solve this problem. The way to solve this problem is very different. Yes, you can go keep on trying, you can go on trying to get vaccines and medicines or whatever, but the problem will remain. Some other problem will come up. So Allah has given examples in the Quran that there are so many nations were destroyed in so many different ways. Why is Allah telling that? Because Allah has a rule, Allah has a system. He tolerates it up to a certain point, and when the appointed time comes, then the destruction comes. So this is a very big responsibility on Imran Khan. Allah has given him an opportunity, like he gave opportunity to Nawaz Sharif, and he wasted that. He gave it to Zardari, and he gave it to the others. Throughout history of Pakistan, people have had opportunities. Allah gives people opportunities to correct themselves, to correct the people. And Imran Khan doesn't have too much time. He has to look back. He has to just look into the Quran and see what the Quran is saying. Forget about Tariq Jameel and the others. This is a thinking that the Quran is saying your conditions are because of your own selves. And this is basically what Tariq Jameel is saying. So we want Imran Khan to succeed. We don't want him to fail. But if he doesn't pay attention to what Allah is saying, he can he can bring all the experts from the top universities. He can bring in all the experts from the World Bank, anywhere. Nothing is going to happen. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. He needs to go back and do his homework. And he has to do something quickly because time is passing and people are suffering. Millions and millions of people are suffering. And it's because of the people in the high places with the wrong thinking. He needs to replace these people. He has to bring the people with the right thinking. And then he has to monitor how they are doing their work. If he thinks the wrong thinking is being injected in the society, then the problem is just going to get worse. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give Imran Khan the right understanding and give him the opportunity to bring people of that. Pakistan, alhamdulillah, has people, the right thinking people. They have people of right thinking with the right competence. Those people need to be brought up into the positions of power so that they can change, they can bring the change. The Medina state did not come with the wrong thinking. The people of Medina state had the thinking of the Quran. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them the most successful people. That's the way to succeed. You see, he talks about the Medina state, but he doesn't know what kind of people were running the Medina state, what kind of thinking they had. Their thinking is not the thinking of the people who are running Pakistan. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help Imran Khan to have the right kind of people. One person is not, and Tariq Jameel said it in his bayan. One person cannot do anything. The leader is judged from his choices, from the kind of people he selects. If he selects the people with the wrong thinking, they may have degrees from best universities in the world. They may be the most educated people in the worldly sense. But if they have the wrong thinking, they are going to mess things up, and this will continue. So we ask Allah to help Imran Khan and also help the people who are trying to change the condition in Pakistan. Wa akhirat dawana and alhamdulillah rabbil alamin.